The Federal Reserve is about to have its July meeting, and it doesn't really matter if you're watching this video before or after, because the Federal Reserve isn't going to do anything. They're not going to cut rates. But their September meeting is a completely different story. There's virtually a 100% chance that they will cut their federal funds rate by that meeting. And for some, that might be cause for celebration. For example, loan officers, anyone who's in car sales, and realtors, and perhaps maybe even you. A lower federal funds rate means lower rates on credit cards, on auto loans, and on the big one, homes. But for me, I don't see roses and sunshine. I see a huge problem ahead, either in 2025 or 2026. I believe inflation is going to return and reaccelerate. Now, I do want to spend a good portion of this video talking about that problem, but before I get there, we need to define two sides to a very important coin, and we need to ask one very important question. First, the coin. The inflation coin. On one side is the side of the Federal Reserve. They see a very strong economy. They see a labor market which has remained strong, even in the face of very high interest rates, at least high for recent history. And that side sees inflation as almost cured. That side sees inflation almost back to the 2% target rate. That side sees winning the battle against inflation as inevitable and just a matter of time. In fact, the PCE inflation report, which contains the Fed's preferred method at measuring inflation, which is PCE core inflation, is standing at 2.6%. Remember, the Federal Reserve wants that number at 2%. And when you look at the trajectory of PCE data over the last couple of years, at this point to the Fed, it truly does seem like just a matter of time until that number hits their golden 2% target rate. But the other side of the coin, that side is more anecdotal in nature. That side is people, citizens, employees, mothers, fathers, college students, people like you, people like me. It's the people who go to the grocery store, who put fuel in their vehicles, and have to live day in and day out with the reality of the situation and the reality of prices. For those people, for us, the fight against inflation doesn't look like it's already been won. In fact, the day-to-day reality almost looks like the opposite of the official numbers. Now, we can argue all day at what's more important, the data or the anecdotal evidence. We can argue all day whether that data is even accurate, or whether the ability to revise numbers after the fact leaves room for rosy reports and revisions later when no one's watching. We can argue all of that. But what we can't argue is how the Federal Reserve's future projected actions seem to lie on the opposite side of the coin. You see, the Fed is going to cut rates at their September meeting. The CME Watch tool is almost guaranteeing it at this point. So now that we've talked about the two sides of the coin, before we can talk about the return of inflation, I said that there was a very important question that we must ask. So here it is. If the Fed believes the economy is so strong and the labor market is so robust, why are they rushing back to their cheap money, low interest rate policies so quickly? Are those cheap money policies not meant to be used in the event that the economy is weak? Aren't we supposed to print money when the economy needs it? Aren't we supposed to cut rates to prop up the economy? But the government reports say the exact opposite, that the economy is strong. I mean, the GDP report for 2024 Q2 just came in last week, and it's showing plus 2.8% GDP growth. That's very strong for a mature economy like the United States. But the Fed is already rushing back to its quantitative easing and easy money policies. It's literally in their summary of economic projections, or the SEP report as it's known. Their projections show quantitative easing returning, and they show the federal funds rate at 4.25% by the end of 2025, and by the end of 2026, they project that they will cut rates down to 3.25%. So really, this leaves us with two scenarios. One, the economy is not as strong as the numbers suggest, and the Fed knows this. And they know that this current economic cycle is basically built on a house of cards, and they have to revert to money printing. Or two, the economy is strong, which is actually just as scary. Because if the economy is strong already, well then, what do you think is going to happen to the prices of everything when interest rates are cut and the Federal Reserve starts printing billions, most likely trillions of dollars again, and money and interest rates become cheap again? What do you think is going to happen to one of people's largest expenses? Housing. What do you think is going to happen to the real estate market when the median sales price is already at record highs? What do you think is going to happen when mortgage rates come down? And with every percentage point drop, millions of new potential home buyers become qualified and come on market. You think real estate prices are going to go down or even stay the same? No. That's not what's going to happen. And what do you think is going to happen to the rental market? You think landlords, seeing the value of their properties increase, are going to keep rental rates the same? No. They're either going to raise rents or sell them to a home buyer for profit, which lowers the rental supply and raises the average rent anyway, or they're going to sell them to another landlord who's just going to raise the rates anyway. So, are we in scenario A, where the economy isn't as strong as it seems? Or are we in scenario B, where the economy is strong and inflation is going to reignite the moment rates come down? Or are we in both, where we end up with the worst of both worlds? Are we in a scenario where on paper the economy is strong, but at the same time that economy is built on a house of cards, where wages are not high enough and where people are employed but have to be employed at multiple jobs just to pay their bills? And the problem with that combination? Well, the Fed has to cut rates to keep the house of cards propped up. But at the same time, those very same rate cuts will reignite inflation. Maybe not everywhere, but where it matters, like real estate prices and essential goods. That's the worst case scenario. And unfortunately, it seems like, as with everything else in our messed up Earth timeline, it seems like it's the most likely scenario that we're in. So I want you to let me know what you think. Is the economy actually strong? Is inflation actually under control? And regardless of whether it is or isn't, should the Fed's next move actually be cutting rates right now? Would you rather live with higher rates or with lower rates with the higher chance of inflation returning? I mean, this stuff is very important, you guys. It directly affects our future, from everything like being able to afford housing to being able to afford groceries. And really, when it comes down to it, how good of a life we have, and how good of a life the generation that comes after us has. It's serious stuff. Let's hope our leaders take it as seriously as the ones who have to live with the outcome. Us.